got angry?
Yeah.
And I went, boom.
How could you ever admit to something?
What they do to you in there, it's a nightmare.
A daycare provider with a low verbal IQ confesses to killing a toddler in her care.
She says she didn't do it.
Never disciplined him. Never. I'll even take a lie detector to that.
This is the case of a young daycare worker from Illinois whose life was forever altered by the tragic death of a toddler in her care. On January 14, 2009, Melissa Calusinski was working as a teacher's assistant at the Miney-Subi Daycare in Lincolnshire, a suburb of Chicago. That afternoon, while alone in a classroom with 16-month-old Benjamin Kingan and other children, she noticed Ben suddenly became unresponsive and was foaming at the mouth. Emergency services were called, and Ben was rushed to the hospital, but he was pronounced dead about an hour later. The tragic incident marked the beginning of a long and controversial legal battle for Calusinski, who was later convicted of murder in a case fraught with questions and inconsistencies. During the autopsy, Dr. Upal Choi, the pathologist, told a detective that he had observed a skull fracture and extensive internal bleeding in Ben's brain. He concluded that the injury was inflicted by another person using significant force several hours before Ben's death. However, the autopsy report indicated that Ben had no visible external injuries or serious wounds on his body. When police questioned Calusinski, she repeatedly denied causing harm to Ben, more than 60 times in fact. Yet, after enduring 9 hours of intense interrogation without legal representation, she confessed to throwing Ben on the ground. Calusinski later insisted that her confession was false and coerced, saying that she only confessed because she felt it was the only way to end the grueling questioning. The trial took place in November 2011, with prosecutors presenting a case that Ben had been a healthy child before his death and that the skull fracture was a recent injury consistent with having been violently thrown to the floor. Dr. Choi testified about the fracture, and another state pathologist, Dr. Manny Montez, supported this claim by asserting he could feel the fracture with his bare hands during his examination of Ben's body. However, Calusinski's defense attorney, Paul DeLuca, faced major challenges. Before the trial, prosecutors had provided the defense with a disc containing X-rays that were too dark and unreadable. This prevented DeLuca from effectively challenging the state's evidence. Despite this, DeLuca maintained that Calusinski was innocent and that her confession was the result of coercion. The defense also introduced evidence that Ben had suffered a previous head injury 3 months before his death, before Calusinski began working at the daycare. Additionally, Ben was known to throw himself backward and hit his head, a behavior that the defense argued could have worsened the old injury and contributed to his death. However, the jury ultimately rejected these arguments, resulting in Calusinski's conviction. A year after the conviction, in 2012, Dr. Thomas Rudd, the newly elected Lake County coroner, agreed to review the autopsy evidence following the defense's insistence. Rudd examined slides of Ben's brain and identified signs of an old injury that Dr. Choi had overlooked. Rudd, along with another respected pathologist, believed that the old injury was massive and that Ben's habit of banging his head exacerbated it. They suggested this combination led to brain swelling that ultimately shut down Ben's breathing system, causing his death. Notably, a daycare worker, Nancy Callinger, had reported seeing Ben throw himself backward twice on the day he died. Despite Rudd's findings, the prosecutors remained steadfast in their original position. Dr. Choi even signed a sworn affidavit admitting he missed the old injury, but stated he would not change his trial testimony. In 2015, Rudd's team uncovered clear X-rays of Ben on the coroner's office computer that contradicted the earlier evidence. These X-rays showed no sign of a skull fracture. prompting Rudd to change the manner of Ben's death on the death certificate from homicide to undetermined. This discovery reignited hope for Calusinski's defense, and Kathleen Zellner, a lawyer renowned for overturning wrongful convictions, took on the case. She fought to reopen it, arguing that had the clear X-rays been available at trial, the outcome would have been different. In 2016, Calusinski was granted an evidentiary hearing before Judge Daniel Shaines, who had presided over her trial. At the hearing, Zellner argued that the defense was initially provided with manipulated and inferior X-rays, while prosecutors contended there was no new evidence. Prosecutors claimed that the defense's trial attorney, DeLuca, had software to enhance the images but did not use it properly. However, DeLuca testified he was unable to access the software. With help from imaging experts, Zellner maintained that the X-rays given to the defense were altered, making them unreadable. Furthermore, the deputy coroner at the time, Paul Foreman, testified that Dr. Montez, who claimed to have felt the fracture, never physically examined Ben's skull. Dr. Robert Zimmerman, a pediatric neuroradiologist, also testified that the clear X-rays would have shown a fracture if one existed, but they did not. At the hearing, Zellner, DeLuca, forensic experts, and Yale psychologist Catherine Thomas presented their case. Thomas testified that Calusinski was vulnerable to false confessions due to borderline intellectual functioning and PTSD stemming from a rape she reported years earlier. Opposing the petition were Lake County Assistant State's attorneys and Ben's parents, who remained convinced of Calusinski's guilt. Following the hearing, the Prisoner Review Board submitted a confidential recommendation to Governor Pritzker, who has no deadline to act. When asked what she would say to the governor, Calusinski tearfully pleaded, "Just please, look at my case. I didn't do this." The case remains a powerful example of the complexities and potential miscarriages in the justice system as Calusinski continues her fight for freedom after 16 years behind bars. If you enjoyed this video, subscribe to our channel and hit that bell icon for more interesting videos like this.